My name is Dan Finucane, and I'm currently a regent. I love folk music, blues music, and I love singing and playing with other people.
My name is Ian Peoples. I'm a Jesuit regent. I'm kind of a football fanatic. Most of my weekends are spent watching at least a few games. I'm probably one of the biggest Lionel Messi fans. Hello and welcome back to MagisTalk. I'm your host Ian Peoples and I'm joined by my co-host and brother Jesuit Dan Finucane. We want to welcome you back to the show.
And today we want to welcome our guest, Mr. Abel Vargas. So welcome, Abel. Along with his wife, Abel is the co-director of Hand in Hand Ministries here in Belize City. That ministry is one where they build homes for low-income families in need. Abel is also in formation to be ordained a permanent deacon, which we're really excited about. And we're looking forward to hearing a little bit about that process, what that's been like, and your hopes for your future in that ministry. So Abel, again, welcome to the show. We're glad to be with you today.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for having me, Dan. I'm very happy to be here, and hopefully I could say a little bit about myself and what I do and inspire someone to do something good.
Hopefully, yes. Yeah, we always like to talk. And by this time that this episode is airing, I think a hurricane may have come and gone. So our prayers for all of you at home as we're in this time of kind of waiting. This is Monday right now. So prayers for everyone as prepping. And I hope you got through all that okay and safe. But yeah, Belle, one thing we usually like to start off with is just talking about kind of a background of a person's faith life when we have them on. So for you, what was your faith life like growing up, and what role did it have in your family and upbringing?
Very well. Let me try to be as concise as I can, because this is going to take me all day. Well, actually, I was born into a very Catholic family. My mom is my mentor and my hero, actually, and she's my greatest influencer in terms of my spirituality. Her mom was also the caretaker of St. Ignatius here in Belize, and therefore she followed in her footsteps. We moved to Corozal, and that's where I grew up. Actually, my formative years were in Corozal, and so she was very much. She's always been very much involved in the church there, and so then I became involved as well. So at a very tender age, I became an acolyte, a head server. I could remember way back serving priests like Father Ring, Father Walt. I don't know if people...
I don't know.
This is a way back.
Ring's name.
Yeah, he was a very avid electrician, actually. He had a hearing aid, and anyhow, yeah.
Were these Jesuits?
Yeah, they were all Jesuits. They were all Jesuits. I mean, Belize, the formation of Belize's spirituality is based on the Jesuits. The Jesuits came here, and thank God for the Jesuits, they came here, and because of them, Catholicism has been so widespread in Belize. They were the ones who were adventurous enough to take the horse rides, the treks in the bushes, and all the insects and all that, and then they were the ones who took that adventurous move, and so our Catholic spirituality spread throughout the entire country. Anyhow, that's another thing. But yeah, since then also at the age of 12, I was the first person to take on the leadership of the parish youth group. That was St. Francis Xavier youth group at the age of 12. And had that youth group. At the age of about 15, 16, I started my own choir. And so I had my choir there. At the age of 16, I learned to play the organ. And so I started the choir there as well. Eventually, and at that time, the youth ministry was very vibrant. Very vibrant in Belize. We had youth jamborees every year, and it was a big thing. I mean, we had an average of about 500 to 600 youths from all over the country who would come and spend about 4 or 5 days together praying and enjoying each other's company. So through that, I then became exposed. I moved to Belize to seek better employment. And once in Belize, then I was roaming about different parishes, different churches, and ended up with St. Martin's. And the reason why I ended up with St. Martin's is because I realized St. Martin's was the most needed parish in the city. they were in an area where we need spirituality. They were not as prosperous as the other church. So I decided to settle there, which was most humbling for me. So that's the reason why I settled there. But whilst I was in Belize, I got involved with the youth ministry. And I was then assigned as the central spiritual director for Belize. Belize was then divided in the north, south, and central, which means then that at that time, I was in charge of about probably between 18 and 25 youth groups in the Belize and Cayo districts. And so every week I would go visit a different group and help them with retreats and prayers, etc. And that's where I've become involved. So ever since then, I've been very much involved with the church. I became part of the Pastoral Life Commission under Father Noah Leslie. I was part of a liturgy committee. And now Father Leslie had asked me if I would take on the responsibility of the commission itself. And I accepted. And so that's where I am right now. I'm actually responsible for the Parish Life Commission, Pastoral Life Commission, sorry. And that's where I am.
All right.
So it sounds like your start working with youth groups really has blossomed into kind of being with the church in leadership positions in a lot of different ways. It sounds life-giving.
Of course it is, and it has always been very nurturing and very, very sobering. That's a good word to use. Because in all the turmoil and all the confusion and all the different noises that are happening in our society today as a result of technology, there's a lot of deviations, if I may. When in the past we had 2 or 3 roads to follow, now we have hundreds of roads to follow. Because and I'm saying that very in a way that to try to describe how people have so many choices now. So many choices have opened up, and how do you know which one is the best choice? So, and I've seen that happen. And what for me, my spirituality has kept me a little bit sober, a little bit more at peace, and hopefully it will lead me in the right direction to God.
Well, Abel, maybe you could tell us a little bit like how you got associated with Hand in Hand.
Oh, sure.
And kind of what their mission is
Okay.
for people who might not be familiar with Hand in Hand ministries.
Let me be as concise with that too. So while I was the central director for the central zone, Mark Thessing was a JV, and he came and he was part of the Jesuit volunteers, and he was given the task of leading the St. Martin de Porres youth group. So his group was one of the groups that I was in charge of, responsible for spiritual direction, and that's how me and Mark got to know each other. He was as the youth leader. And so we developed a good relationship. And since he was here in Belize City, even some of my trips that I took out in the districts to help other youth groups, he would come along. So we developed a very good relationship. Mark is a wonderful guy, actually. I can remember Jesuits as far back as like James Neely, Mark Thessing. These are great Jesuits, volunteers. And so when his 2 years was up, he returned back to the States. Whilst in the States, he communicated with our CEO, Wayne Fowler, God rest him. And Wayne was interested in starting the first office out in Belize. And so Mark said, hey, I like Belize, I want to go back. And so they partnered with the St. Vincent de Paul Society, and they started building very small houses, 8 by 12 plywood houses, really a room, but a castle for the people who got them. And that's how it started. And that started here in 2002. Somewhere in 2005, I was between jobs, and I had gotten an offer in Belmopan and an offer in Corozal with the free zone. And I was wondering where to go, because evidently as the head of my home, wherever I go, my family goes. So I don't make decisions for myself. And since I started a family, I stopped thinking about myself, because as a responsible head of a home, you think for your home and your family, and they are first. So that's what kept me grounded in Belize, because to move to Corozal would require uprooting my family, to move to Belmopan as well. So I was in between jobs, and I was guest lecturing at SJC Junior College. So that kept me afloat. And Mark approached me and said, "What are you doing right now, Abel?" Because I was still going to Martin's, and I met Mark, and he said, "Well, we started hand in hand, and this is in about 2005." He says, and now it has grown, and we would like to structure it. Could you come in for a couple of weeks and help us structure it? I said, "Of course." So I volunteered about 3 weeks to get in there and set up a whole structure in terms of management, hierarchy, work chart, everything. Whilst I was there, the guy who was in charge of the immersion trips, driving around the van and taking care of the group, his mother got very ill, and he had to rush back to the States. And I remember a day, Mark comes into the office and he's all frustrated. He's like, "What am I going to do? This guy is leaving." And I said, "What does he do?" "He drives around the group and so on and so on." I said, "I could do that. If you need help, I could do that." I said, "I already have the financing already organized here. I have the structure here. You just have to follow this. I don't have to be here anymore. I could do that." And I started doing that. And I did that for about 2 weeks. I got hooked. And so I got back to my wife, and we had to make some drastic cuts. And I'm telling you, that was a good experience for us, because at that time we realized that we were living far in excess of what our needs were. We were living a little bit too extravagant, a little bit too loose. And so we made some severe cuts and found out that even with those cuts, because my salary had gone less than half, and even with those cuts, we were still comfortable. We were at peace. I was finally in a place where I felt meaningful. I felt that my day spent at work, which has now become my vocation, is a day of satisfaction. In the business world, it's a cutthroat situation, and you have to find a way to make money. That's the bottom line. However you could. So you go home at times worried that you may have done something wrong. You may have done something that goes against your principles as a person. Especially me, very much involved in the church. I used to go home at nights and pray about things that I had to do, and decisions I had to make. Now with Hand in Hand, I go home and it's all prayers of thanksgiving, because you help people every day.
Yeah.
So I felt, I had a very serious talk with my wife, and I said, "This is where I belong. This is where I need to be. So we will find a way to make us keep me there." And that's what we did. And my wife has been very supportive. I mean, that's one of my greatest blessings, really, my wife. And she was very supportive. And she having a financial mind, saw how we set up everything, and we made it work. Not knowing that about 6 years later, Wayne would come down, and sort of like a surprise, he took us out to dinner, because he usually used to do that. And I remember my wife is sitting here, I am sitting there, and Wayne is over here, and he does this, and he looks at her and he says, "So Maggie, how would you like to work for this guy?" And I was like, "What?" He says, "Yeah, I would like you guys as a couple to work." And then he looks at her, and this guy, I don't know, some people have special blessings. Wayne was a person who knew how to decipher personalities. He would know. And when he hires someone, it's the right person. He just had that gift. And he looked at Maggie and said, "I think you would be a good support for him at Hand in Hand." And she has been. Some couples tell you it's hard to work together because you see them all day. But for me, she has been really a help. Yeah. And even the staff tells me, now that your wife is working with us, you seem to be more happy, more settled, and a better decision maker. And I'm like,
that's
what?
A blessing.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's how it has come that Maggie's with us as well. But at Hand in Hand, and that's how then in 2008, Wayne approached me and said, "We would like Mark to come back to the head office because we have plans for him globally. And we want you to take over Belize." And that's how in 2008, I fully took over Belize as the person fully responsible for everything that happens here. And since then, I've been there. So it's going to be about like 17 years now that I've been there. But every day is a new gift. Every day is a new hope. Every day is a new love. Every day things get better because we help people and we serve people. And at Hand in Hand, we have 3 major initiatives. Of course, you mentioned about the Building for Change program. We've built 465 houses so far. And we were going to build a house this week because our board was coming in on Wednesday. But guess what? Lisa is on the horizon. So now, well, they'll name her probably later on today, but she'll be knocking on our doors as probably an 80-mile-per-hour Hurricane Category 1 on Wednesday, the same day that they were scheduled to fly in. So this morning I got the call from the head office and they're saying that they're canceling. So we were going to start our 466 house this week, but that won't happen. We have 3 more houses to build before the end of the year. So we will have built up to 368 by the end of the year.
That's wonderful.
That's the Building for Change program. In that Building for Change program, we also have what we call an education component where the recipients of the home, the partners, they become partners once they receive a home because we partner with them for 10 years before we hand over the house to them to ensure that the house serves the purpose it is intended to. We keep the house for 10 years. We co-own the house for 10 years. Then they come in for an education component, and the education component is a system of 12 different sessions that they need to complete for the year, every month. And in those sessions, we instructing in things like first aid, financial management, social integration, living in harmony with your neighbors, hygiene, and medical. Lots of different things that we teach, and we've partnered with different organizations, including the Ministry of Social Services, and they come in and bring lecturers in to help them and instruct them in that training. So they have to go through that 12 sessions. Then we have out of that Building for Change program, one of our hallmark achievements is that from within that program, we have what we call a leadership program. 3 of the women who had received house from us, they realized how blessed they were, and they wanted to do it for someone else. And so from within themselves, with no instruction, no inclination, no boosting from us at hand in hand, they started a leadership group among themselves. And it's right now, it was 6 women, and it's now about 8 of them, 9 of them. And they do fundraiser, and they do like bake sale, little barbecues, little raffles, and they accumulate money, and they have built 2 houses for other people.
How old are these women?
These women are average age of about 40.
Okay.
Yeah. But they've received the house.
Wow.
So they want to give back. And now they have saved enough money that they're about 70% to their next house. We are scheduled to build our 500th house in January or February of 2024. And we are scheduling them to build that house.
Wow. That's great.
So that's our hallmark achievement for that Building for Change program, because they represent in person our mission. Because our mission is to help others to be able to help themselves and others. Once the people we help start helping others, then we know that we can move on to someone else. Because we've empowered them. We've actually transformed them and their lives. That's the Building for Change program. We also have an outreach program. And we're the only organization in Belize that cares primarily and focus primarily on the HIV-infected child. So we are actually the people who are responsible for all the HIV-infected children in the known cases of HIV infection of children in the country. And we provide them with a holistic care and support package that comprises of about 20 to 24 different services that we provide. And we have 2 nurses on staff, so that means that the child gets all the different treatments, all the different needs met, from taking the blood, centrifuging the blood, taking the blood to the lab, fighting with the technicians to get the lab results, taking back the results to the family, do the pre and post counseling, get the doctor to do the dosage, monitor the dosage, take the medication to them and make sure that they're adhering to the medication, etc. Monitor any changes or challenges to see if we have to and liaise with the Ministry of Health closely to ensure that the child is getting the full support. Incidentally, mentioning the Ministry of Health, we were one of the first organizations that got on the government grid, the Belize Health Information System. We have a server in our office. And we were one of the first non-government organizations that were given direct access to the Belize Health Information System. because all of our information is inputted in real time to the ministry. And that's what we do. We also do what we call opportunistic infections. We know that these children who are infected, a regular over-the-counter antibiotic does not work for them too well because they are in critical care. So they need critical care and they need immediate and good effective medication. Effective medication is not cheap.
Yeah.
So we provide that as well for them. We also provide nutritional support for them. We provide counseling support for them. And we also provide other supports.
So is this over the course of years, it sounds like that?
Yeah, the Building for Change program started way back in 2003.
Okay.
All right. And in 2004, in January, it's when it kicked off completely. And we started that program, and everything that Hand in Hand does is based on need. As we do and we find needs, that's where we move, because we believe God leads and we follow. And wherever God tells us there's a need, it's where we need to be. And in that year, UNICEF, the United Nations, had sent out a informative, and they had said that within the next 10 years, 1 in every 10 children in Belize will be infected with HIV and AIDS. And most of them will be dying.
What year was this released?
This was in 2004.
Now, is that
No, it
shown
didn't.
true? Yeah,
No,
that
no.
sounds like a dire.
Of course,
dire
and that's exactly, and that's the reason why we jumped on it right away, and we said we have to do something for the children.
Yeah.
But God is good, and He has blessed us tremendously, and that has not come to fruition.
Thank God, yeah.
On the contrary, about 8-9 years ago, the Ministry of Health embarked on this mother-to-child transmission program, and they have been very successful. And we found where now no child needs to be born with HIV and AIDS, because once we administer the ARVs in the third trimester of the pregnancy, there's a likelihood that the transmission will not happen.
Okay.
And so no children should be born with HIV and AIDS anymore once they're in the system.
If you're able to intervene.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And then apart from that program, we also have a scholarship program. And that scholarship program has been since 2005.
For high school students?
2004, sorry. And for high school, at that time, we had done high school and sixth form. We had done 15 high school and 10 sixth form students, junior college. Now we found where the junior college students, and the way that should work, the junior college students would get a scholarship, and once they graduate, they should come back and help the high schoolers. We found that the junior college students, once they were graduating, they were moving on.
Out of the country?
Yeah, some out of country and some in their own business, etc., because they've attained their undergraduate. So we realized, let's concentrate on the high schoolers. And so now since then, we've had between 20 and 25 high school students in our scholarship program.
That's great.
This year we have 21.
All right.
And we assist them with complete scholarship. So we've had that scholarship program for the past 15 years or more. From that scholarship program, right now in Belize, we have a civil engineer, we have a lawyer, a couple of lawyers, I think. We have right now in our scholarship 2 students that are going through paralegal and we will become lawyers. We have several nurses. We have 2 doctors. We have about 3 military guys. We have several policemen. We have about 6 social workers and 2 counselors that have come from the scholarship program. And why I say that? 9 out of 10 of those scholarship students would never have gotten an education had we not intervened, because they would not be able to afford it. At Hand in Hand, unlike other scholarships, we do not award scholarship based on academic achievement. We award scholarship based on need. Incidentally, last year we had 2 students who were on probation because they were not doing well. And we took them in. And we have a tutoring program for the scholarship program. And we tutored them, and they're now successful in school. So it's not because they're making a GPA of 3.5 or 3.0 or whatever. Now, that's secondary.
Yeah.
The first thing that we look at is, how are you living? Can you go to school? No, my mom is a single mother. She's barely giving us things to eat. I'm not going to be able to afford school. That's the child we want to talk about. And that's the child we bring in.
Unfortunately, know so many young men and older men who couldn't afford to go to high school, right? So exactly this population. Well, it really sounds like when you're talking about hand-in-hand ministries, it really is a vocation for.
Oh yes, it is. It is.
But I also want to talk about your call to diaconate. And can you just can you share with us what that formation has been like? When did you start feeling this call to the diaconate, and what has that process been like?
Well, I'll tell you what, Ian. It goes back all the way back about probably 12 or 13 years ago. When I had gone to Father Laz was one of God bless him, was one of my mentors, really, young priest, gone definitely too soon, but that's God's plan, and we don't question that. And I remember I was taking a couple of the sisters of Mercy, driving them up to the funeral in Dangriga. And while we were going there, they do all their rosary and all kinds of stuff. And we were driving, and they asked me, Abel, so are you still in youth ministry? Are you still doing this? Are you still doing your choir? And yes. When we were coming back, one of them says, you should be a deacon. And I like, really? That's not in Belize. Yes, and they started advocating. And so it was then that the idea got into my head. But then, it wasn't happening. And even way back with Bishop Martin, God rest him, he had plans to start a diaconate program, and it just didn't come through. So 3 years ago, when this came on stream, Father Brian is the one who approached me. And at that time, he was the pastor of St. Martin's. And I have 3 priests in the country right now that I look forward to for my personal spiritual development, personally. And Father Brian is one of them, of course. I just wish I had more time to spend with him, but I know how busy he is. And I wish that, we could talk more, because I enjoy speaking with Father Brian. He has a very different perspective on things, and he's very Jesuit, and I like that. And so I enjoy having talks with him. So I would speak to Father Brian most of the time when I can. I also speak a lot with Father Scott Giuliani, and of course the most personal relationship I have with Father Noah Leslie, who is a diocesan, and he's a man of wisdom, honestly. He knows just about anything, not only about the church, but about life. So I enjoy sitting down with Father Leslie, and we speak a lot, and I get a lot of direction from them. So Father Brian was the one who approached me and said, Abel, this deacon program is coming on stream, and we think we'd like to suggest that and we'd like to recommend you. And I'm like, oh man, here it comes again. But then I got home and I spoke to my wife and my children, and I said, our priests need help. Because at the level that I am involved in the church, I can see the struggles that our priests go through. I can see how thin they're spread. They don't have a life. And a lot of our Catholics don't realize how much our priests do. And they think, they just sit around, and when they do a mass here, do a mass there, and that's it. They have nothing to do. These guys are spread very thin. And not only they are spread thin, but they're on 24-hour call. I've seen where even Father Brian, 2 a.m, they call him, we need to do prayers for the sick, for someone in the hospital that's dying, or they need to do, and they have to go. They're called to do that. So they need help. And because of that, I said, in my Jesuit spirituality, it always asks, what more can we do? And I thought, let me try this. And so we started the process. It was a process, of course. I had to fill out a 40-page questionnaire. Father Brian had his own 10 pages that he had to fill out for me. He had to meet with me personally. He had to meet with my wife separately. And then they had to interview my children separately. They had to do a background on me. They had to go back and check out my St. Francis Xavier days information, baptismal confirmation for Holy Eucharist, all that, matrimony. They did a complete background check before they approved it. And after they approved it, it's when we went in. And the entire family had to be on board. In the formation of a permanent diaconate, my wife also by default is the wife of a deacon.
Yeah.
So she has certain obligations as well. All right. So, for instance, right now we do a monthly retreat. She has to be involved in our retreats. We are doing the studies. she has to be involved in some of the studies. Most of the studies that I do, I have to share with her, and we talk about it because she is also information. And this is another thing that a lot of people don't know, if my wife should die before me, I then get the opportunity to become a priest as a permanent deacon. And that's where you'll find a Catholic priest having children in the pews. That's
at my home parish, there's a priest who has a grown child because I don't know if he's actually started. I think he was a permanent deacon before, and then he requested to pursue priestly ordination. Yeah.
Well, right now we have them, but we have some that have come over from the Anglican.
That's right.
From the from the Episcopal, and so we've brought them in with their families. But that's how a Catholic could become a priest and still have children.
Yeah,
that's one way.
That's right.
So, my wife is my final partner for life.
Of course.
If she dies before me, I cannot take on another partner. I need to stay, and then I can become a priest if I like to. But that's the gift. But it's been a process, and we have to go through 5 years of formation as a deacon. Right now we're on our 3rd year. We started off with 9. Deacon Manger got ordained this year, because he had already been in formation for priests.
Okay.
So he had all the basics already. It was just like a 2-year refresher he did. So he's now a deacon, and we're very proud of him for that. And we're hoping to follow in his footsteps in the next 2 years. But yeah, so the diaconate formation is in 4 parts. You have the intellectual, which is what we're going through, and as the Vatican dictates, we have to do at least certain credit hours of graduate studies in theology, philosophy, all these different subjects that helps form our intellectual basis. Then we have the human formation. Then we have the spiritual formation, and then we have the pastoral formation. Now the human, spiritual, and pastoral is ongoing, which is the reason why all of us that are on deacon candidates must be intricately, and completely involved with the church at some point. And you'll find that each of the deacon candidates have something that they're doing that is totally vocational and totally dedicated to the service of God through the church.
It sounds, you talked earlier, you mentioned the name of our show. You didn't say the word Magis, but you did say, what more can I do? And it sounds like a lot more has been asked of you, but that there's, it sounds like a very rich experience that you're describing. And so our final question actually would be, if kind of looking at the Belizean church, what's one thing in the Belizean church that is giving you hope right now?
The young people. The young people, they're always the hope. And that's the reason why right now we're very much interested in really creating a good youth ministry. The recent synod, I was blessed to be part of that with Father Scott Giuliani, and the synod informed us that one of the major areas that we need to concentrate our efforts in is in the young people, the youth. And so that's where our hope is. Even that hand-in-hand ministry is where we are right now. We're planning things for the young men in that area, because the young people is the hope. And that's where I see. And I'll tell you what, you speak to the young people, they're hungry for the right guidance. They're hungry for the right direction. They just are not getting it. And when I say right direction, it's not that you have to be there all day, every day. It's just to be there to answer 1 or 2 questions that they have that could actually transform their lives and lead them either that way or that way.
Well, you're talking about discernment, you're talking about vocation, and one of the things that I think our young people face as you're studying something like philosophy and theology, philosophy especially, which is the pursuit of wisdom, of truth, right? And I think we live in a world where they hear a lot of competing claims of truth, and which is difficult. So we do, this is something Pope Francis has told the Jesuits in particular, which is to teach discernment. And so I think that's such an important part of this. And just in one word, or maybe one sentence, what advice would you give someone who is discerning a vocation?
Pray.
Like a young person, prayer.
Pray,
All right.
pray. I'll tell you, I live by a philosophy now. I live by 3 P's. And anybody who's been in a retreat with me or any study will know. Patience, perseverance, and prayer. Patience, perseverance, and prayer. All right? Be patient. Let work things in God's time. We want God to work in our time. His time is perfect. Ours is imperfect. Be patient. Be patient. Persevere. Because if you know in your heart that this is where you want to go, persevere. And you'll have a lot of obstacles. You'll have a lot of distractions. You'll have a lot of things that will stop you. But you persevere. Persevere and pray. All right? And at the end, you pray a lot. And once you pray a lot and you develop that relationship with God, you'll know. You'll know what's right. Nobody has to tell you what you're doing is right or wrong. You'll know. And if you are resolute in your prayer with God and He speaks to your heart, He will instruct your soul. Your soul will then instruct your intellect. Your intellect will give your free will the direction it needs that will lead him to God, lead you to God. And once you get that done, persevere.
So patience, perseverance, and prayer.
I think we got the first homily here.
That's right. Patience, perseverance, and prayer.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the final question that we always, our tradition of our show is to ask a question that all of us answer. So our question is kind of geared towards you and Dan, you both are musicians. What is one song that always raises your heart and mind to God, and why?
You are near. You are near. Because if you look at the words of that, Yahweh, I know you're near, standing always at my side. You guard me from my foes, and you lead me in ways everlasting. That song has the words in there that will lead you in any aspect of your life that's challenging. And it has an affirmation to instruct you that you're doing right. So I like that song. There's a lot of songs that I like.
You are near.
Yeah, you are near.
Dan, what
Listen to that song.
Maybe we can play it on our closing credits.
There are so many to choose from. I don't know how you had one ready to go.
Yeah, that was.
Gosh,
Yeah.
it's a toss-up for me. If I had to pick one, and this wouldn't be the only one, but I would say "Open My Eyes." Just a very simple song, but I think sometimes, I don't know, for me, the simpler, the better. I can get lost sometimes if something's overly complicated. So, yeah, the way in which it talks about opening one's eyes, ears, heart, to what God wants to do, I think that would be something that, I don't know, getting to play that song, getting to sing that song with other people is always uplifting.
I like that song too.
Yeah. All right, Ian. What are you singing in the shower?
Right. Yeah.
I'm not a musician, but one of the first song that pops up is one of the versions of the Sushi Pay, which is a prayer in the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius. Take, Lord, receive my liberty, memory, understanding, and will. All I have I call my own. You've given it all to me. To you, Lord, I return it. Everything is yours. Do with it what you will. Give me only your love and your grace. And that is enough for me. Amen. So one of the sung versions of that song, I think it was written by a Jesuit or composed by one of the Jesuits, possibly.
John Foley.
Probably John Foley. But I remember in the novitiate in Grand Coteau, where we spent our first 2 years in formation as Jesuits, there's a Jesuit infirmary or retirement center, which is a misnomer. Jesuits don't retire. They get mission to pray for the church and the society. But anyways, we lived with older Jesuits, and some of them who were dealing with memory issues, some of them who were dealing with, losing the ability to walk and things like that. And I remember listening to that song in the chapel and just having these men who have given everything, right? And even their memory, was being taken, and I remember crying in the chapel, just thinking about these guys who have given their entire lives to Christ in this life that I'm pursuing, that we're pursuing, Dan, and that was really moving to me, and so I still always think about that when I listen to that song. It's something that is always moves my heart. So, great. Yeah, that's our show.
That's our
All
show.
right. Too short. Too short.
Well, Abel, thank you for being on our show. If people want
Thanks
to
for
get
having
to
me.
know Hand in Hand a little bit better, where can they go?
Oh, we're right off the George Price Highway, mile and a half, right next to the Inspiration Center. The same road that you're going to the Inspiration Center, you take a right instead of a left, and you'll see our building right off the highway, right there.
So you can come visit.
Oh,
Ask
please,
how they
please
can
do,
help.
please do. Come visit, come see what we do, and come join us. Partner with us, do something with us, anything. There's always so much to do.
Okay.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again.
Sure.
Great to hear a little bit about your life.
Thank
and
you.
As always, for those of you at home listening or watching, thanks for being with us. If you have any ideas for future shows, please let us know. We've actually had a couple of ideas submitted to us in the last couple weeks, so we're happy about that. And we will see you next time for, we'll see what we're covering next time.
That's right. Y'all be safe out there.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll be
Be
praying
safe.
for you and with you.
Bye, y'all.
God bless.